story is from the first year of my several years teaching as an 8th grade school teacher in Philadelphia public schools. So, before I became a teacher, I was insufferably smug. I thought that all my students would love me, of course. I was convinced that I would never be the kind of teacher who would rush through grading or accidentally recycle some of her students' papers or do anything of the sort. I was convinced that all of my lessons, every single one, would be stunning and impactful and amazing. And to make matters worse, I had just seen Freedom Writers. It had just come out. So I thought that all I needed to do was just believe in my students and show them that I was there for them, and it would just completely change their lives. So how naive was I? So I had many shocking experiences my first year as a teacher. During my interview at my first school in North Philly, the principal asked me to role play a typical classroom scenario and then shouted "fuck you" at me repeatedly. When I asked why the school library was locked, I was told that these kids couldn't handle a real book. I could go on and on and on about that. And I was basically addressed as "you bitch" for basically the first 3 months that I was teaching. So lots of shocking things happened. But I would say that the episode that took the cake happened to me during an after-school tutoring situation, which they called Power Hour. Of course, my school was one of the many failing schools, and they needed to up their test scores. So they selected a certain group of students who they thought might have the potential to get proficient on their tests, and said that these students would be tutored, really just doing practice tests. And my coworker, who had several more years of experience than me, Jessie, was like, "This is going to be a great opportunity for you. You can gain some confidence, you can work on your classroom management, and it'll just be a couple students in the classroom." So there I am, and I have these students, 8 students twice a week, and our sole responsibility is to do practice tests over and over and over. So as you can imagine, they hated me, and they hated Power Hour, and all they wanted to do was go home. So one day, I was having a particularly difficult time with one of my students. We'll call him Mike. And he was just saying how he wanted to go home. He hated Power Hour. He probably was throwing in some colorful language. And I was like, "Okay, Mike, why don't you just go and get a drink of water? Just take a little break." And I was like, "Okay, Julie, you've handled this really well. You've deflected the situation. Like, now I can kind of move on to another student." And so Mike walks away from me, and he's facing away from me, and then he kind of like peers over his shoulder, and then he pulls down his pants. So he fully moons me. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, I have no idea how to handle this situation. I had been through a teacher institute, and we had handled all these different scenarios. So like how to deal with a student if they talked back to you, and how to deal with like difficult if 2 students were in a fight, and what to do if, you had to give really difficult feedback to a student. And I'm like going over these scenarios in my mind, and I was like, what did it say about students who moon you? I have no idea what to do. And in reality, it was probably only like 30 seconds to a minute, but it felt like eternity. So he's like, still faced away from me, and his pants are down, and I'm like, well, I can't really look at him because then all these other terrible things are going to happen to me, but I don't know what to do. And all the other students are looking at me like, what's she going to do? Like, this is the first time she really has to lay down the law. And I'm just like, I was completely shocked. So fortunately for me, my coworker, Jessie, happened to pass by at that time, and he also taught Mike, and so, told Mike to pull up his pants, and he, dragged him away and made him call his mother, something like that. The details that happened after that were kind of fuzzy to me. So needless to say, I was shocked many times during my first year as a teacher, but I would say that story takes the cake. The end.